Hi guys, writer Armando Iannucci described Tory Britain as akin to a Dickens novel, where while the Chancellor and Prime Minister talk about turning a corner and improving the economy, there were record numbers in destitution and child poverty is now embedded in society. Government policies over the last 14 years have made the situation worse, where you have teachers who have to provide hygiene products to kids and families have to rely on food banks, while the richest have seen the greatest transfer of wealth to them in history. Something is deeply wrong.
I know, as well as all your writing work, you do work with CPAG, which is the Child Poverty Action Group. Listening to Jeremy Hunt, what went through your mind?
Well, this is the very week that the poverty report came out, saying that child poverty has gone up yet again, and it's almost like we're in a Dickens novel rather than the sixth biggest economy in the world, saying there's now 3.6 million children in poverty. So for every average class of 30, 9 are in poverty. And to say that we're turning a corner and that we're on the right track while ignoring that is very... It was hard for me to hear him use that phrase, carrot and stick.
Or when we were talking about welfare.
Yeah, because the implication being that you need a stick to beat those on welfare, or you need a stick to beat those in poverty. And lay aside all the emotional, the psychological impact poverty has on children, the shame, the embarrassment, the fact that kids are going to school pretending to have a packed lunch when they don't have anything in their box, not having had any breakfast and therefore going to school tired and stressed. Lay all aside that, it actually helps the economy, the fewer people we have in poverty, because it has the hugest impact on our other services, education, children's services, health, unfortunately the legal system, the more people who are in deprivation. So at the moment we're in a situation where we're actually coming up with policies that are putting more people into poverty and therefore having a greater impact and detriment to the economy because of it.
Breath of fresh air, once again. You know, so many things that he brought up here. For example, the stigma connected to poverty. The idea that, well, if you're in poverty, there's something wrong with you. And it was interesting this week also when it came up about Labour planning to get rid of VAT on private education. And you had the right-wing commentator saying, please think of the poor, rich parents. Please think of these people. How can you force these people to put their children into state schools that are crumbling? Think about them for a moment. While at the same time saying that, well, if you're poor and you can't feed your family and you can't feed yourself, there's something wrong with you. And as Ananda said here also, this idea that you're going to use a carrot and a stick to beat, metaphorically of course, the poorest in society. See, there's something wrong with them. This is a fundamental problem. You have politicians and you have right-wing media working together to convince, and they have succeeded in doing this, to convince the poorest in society that there's something wrong with them, not wrong with society itself. So when Rishi Sunak and Jeremy Hunt talk about, well, the economy is growing, GDP is up, you know, we're the fastest growing economy in the G7 or G20 or whatever it was. This is about convincing the public that, well, if you're not succeeding, there's something wrong with you. If you're on benefits, it's your fault. So look, the economy is doing really well, or that's what they'll say. But this, in reality, is once again a transfer of wealth from the state to the richest. We saw it during the pandemic. Hundreds of billions of pounds transferred from the state to the richest in society. And what do they do with that money? They either send it to their offshore bank accounts, or they buy assets with that. And of course, this drives up the price of housing and all of this. Now, Armando also talked here about children coming to school hungry, children coming to school pretending that they have packed lunches when they don't. Why is this happening? Once again, it comes back to this point of the stigma, this idea that, well, if you're poor, it's your fault. Why do we have to have this? We should be helping people. As a society, the social safety net needs to be reinforced. And the point about the economy makes perfect sense, because if you have more people in poverty, they rely more on public services that are under massive strain because they haven't been funded correctly. And people, if they're lifted out of poverty, they rely less on those services. So you will grow the economy. Poverty is the enemy of true growth in the economy. And so, unfortunately, politicians either don't see this or don't care, and their friends in the media just want to push the opposite narrative. That people on benefits, people in poverty need to be beaten out of that situation. When in reality, it's the obligation of the state to provide at least health, education, and a social safety net to the public. Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think. As always, your comments are greatly appreciated. Thanks a lot.